Hi, this is David, and I wanted to do a response to a nice lady. I hope it's a lady. I think it's a nice lady concerning some questions that she has, and I think they're legitimate questions. And let me take one at a time here. This is Super SUPER 2647, and she says three questions I have in case you do responses to comments, which I do. And that's what I'm doing right now. Number one, why is there such a taboo on talking about Heavenly Mother? Good question. Good question. The only written that I've seen, I could be wrong, but the only written that I've seen about a Heavenly Mother is a songbook that the Mormon songbook has in it. One of the songs has the phrase, "And is there no doubt," or something like that, that I must have a mother there. I have not read other direct comments about that in the Mormon Church, and there is a general belief that there is a Heavenly Mother. Now, it's been speculated by some that Heavenly Mother is actually the Holy Ghost. When you hear the adjectives and the adverbs describing the Holy Ghost, they're all feminine, and that makes me suspicious, even though I don't believe in those things anymore because I'm an atheist. But I certainly lean towards Heavenly Mother and being the Holy Ghost. The other things that makes me very suspicious about the Holy Ghost idea and being a mother is that every time Christ needed a baptism or a birthday or a important event in his life, there seemed to be the Holy Ghost there, and that is very characteristic of mothers. So, in answer to that one question, I don't think that there is a hesitancy for Mormons to talk about Heavenly Mother, but it's one of those things that they don't talk about black people being inferior, but they believe it. So, you got to take it for what it's worth. They don't talk about her because she's not really described in the doctrine. There is a supposition that she must exist because she gave birth, according to the Mormon doctrine, to all of us as spirit children, along with other polygamous sisters and sister wives that created all the children here on earth, according to Mormon doctrine. So I don't think it's an official, we don't talk about her, or they don't talk about her, but they do believe she exists, and they do believe that she was impregnated by Jesus or God Elohim and created all of us as spiritual children before we came down here. And I guess they're still creating, I don't know. Maybe it's Sunday up there. Maybe they're not. Let me answer the second question here. Is it true that tithing applies to inheritance? And if so, what is the compliance rate? Well, again, the Mormon Church doesn't give statistics out. Everything is secret. Everything is sacred. Everything is under the table. So I don't know what the compliance rate is. I can only give you the best opinion, and that may not be that good. It appears that there are many elderly people. Their kids are raised. Their grandchildren are basically raised, and they have an inheritance. Whether they give all or some, I know that many of them give of their inheritance monies to the Mormon Church. The children or others that get inheritance money, that is a gain. Even though tithing had been paid on, that was paid for the people who gave it. The people who receive it are due tithing. So if you inherit, $10,000, you owe $1,000 in tithing to the Mormon Church, even though Grandpa paid all of his tithing on gathering that money. So the compliance rate, I can't give you a number because the Mormon Church doesn't give anyone numbers. They hide all of these things because I think that they're probably embarrassed and humiliated, and realize if any of this information got out, there's a possibility their church could implode from the scrutiny that the regular Mormons would put on it and finding that it was a fraud and the money was being used. So in summary there, I don't know what the compliance rate is, but I knew there's a lot of people who give their inheritance money or portions of it to the Mormon church. How do dietary restrictions affect eating and health? Do people overindulge in junk food to compensate? Is exercise, fitness encouraged? Well, let me take part of this apart. How do dietary restrictions affect eating habits? The dietary restrictions, I don't think you could easily see a Mormon in a restaurant. In the old days, you could a little bit because they don't drink coffee, they won't have a glass of wine, and they're not smoking. Well, these days, no one smokes in a restaurant. So when you take a look at the dietary restrictions of Mormons, none of them that I found. Now, I was only in there a half a century, but none of them ate meat sparingly. I think that word of wisdom commandment was meant when meat was salted and not frozen. Now, that's just David's opinion because I have not heard of that for most of my life in the Mormon church. In fact, all of my life. I've never heard of people say, oh, you're eating a steak, that should be eaten sparingly. Well, meat is frozen these days and it's pretty harmless most of the time. The non-smoking, the non-drinking, and the coffee, there are many people in the world that believe that are not Mormons. So the Mormons don't stick out on that as much on a day-by-day seeing them. So the answer to the health restrictions, how does it affect their habits of eating? I don't think it does. I really have to honestly say I don't think it does. Do people overindulge in junk food to compensate? Well, I think that's a more complex answer, to be honest. I think when you're young and you're beautiful and you have your first baby and your hips expand a little bit, you can get back to your figure and be the cute little self that you were. And I think that after 10 babies, to get back to where you were is like pigs flying. Now, I think what you've got here is a combination questions. Junk food and food that is soothing. Yes, I think that Mormons do engage in food that is soothing and makes them feel better because they're fat. Now, is that characteristic just the Mormons? No, it's not. It's characteristic to age. It's characteristic to genetics. It's characteristic to the social habits and the culture. If you're from Tonga, the fatter you are, the more desirable you are sexually. So I think you have a dual situation going on here. I think that there is probably good self-esteem and good health habits with young mothers, probably under 27, I would say, in the Mormon church. After 27, 28, after 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids, oh my God. I go to the kids' school to pick them up every day. And I was going to take my video camera and just take a picture of the fat asses of the mothers pushing, strollers and a baby in their arms and picking up a 5-year-old. And their ass is so fat, they couldn't even get it into, a bucket seat. I'm not sure they could get it into a skip loader bucket. But anyway, I'm trying to be as fair on this as I can. Now, again, I don't want to be a hypocrite because I got a fat ass, okay? I didn't when I was young. And I didn't have diabetes when I was young, and I wasn't shooting hundreds of units of insulin a day. And, so there can be medical reasons. There can be all kinds of habits. I was drinking Coke and having a candy bar every day of my life since I was in junior high school. That really hasn't ended. So can you link it all to self-esteem? No. Can you make some correlations, positive and negative? I'd say yes. I would say that as we become fatter, uglier, and less desirable, food makes us feel good. And I just had a big bag of popcorn right there and some orange drink. Well, I feel better. So I want to be fair to the Mormons, and I want to be fair in the things that I report. And so the dietary restrictions, how does it affect their eating habits? I don't think it really does. Many times they don't have enough money for good food, and that's because they pay tithing. Do people overindulge in junk food to compensate? I would say yes, but is that just characteristic of Mormons? I would say no. I would say that that happens with most people. Is exercise, fitness encouraged? And I'm going to say yes, it is. And as young people and as young adults and young parents, you will often see in Utah mothers jogging with a stroller in front of them. They have special big wheel strollers that they can push 9 kids. I'm exaggerating, but they can push 2 or 3 little kids in a stroller, and they're trying to stay in shape. So there is a small number, I'm going to say maybe 10-15%, that really do exercise and try to remain attractive and buff to whatever extent. But God, once you've had 4, 5, 6 kids, you know, you could jog to the moon and you're still going to have a fat ass. Now the men, we're probably even worse. Nice thing about men in the Mormon church is we don't have to be good looking. We don't have to be buff. We have the priesthood. And the women are supposed to accept men in the Mormon church as they are. And so the men, I'm going to have to tell you, I think the men are on par, if not advancing in front of the women in pot bellies, fat asses, and baldness. Now, though baldness, what can you do about that? That's genetic. But the men feel they got that ring on their finger, and they're just like a woman. In an eternal marriage, they got to put up with fat asses and bad breath and poor hygiene and whatever. Out in the real world, you try to pull that in a marriage, and someone's going to say, hey, go take a bath and brush your teeth and get down to the gym. You look like shit. Well, in the Mormon religion, they won't do that. They'll accept bulimia and overeating, and they'll accept all kinds of sociological and physiological flaws that are self-imposed. So do they try to exercise? I'm going to say some of the women do, maybe 10% do, because I do see them running with strollers in their hands. And then I do see seldom. Men don't go to the gym. Men are too busy with meeting after meeting after meeting. They fall in bed, they jump up in the morning, they go to work, and then back to meetings and back to meetings. And they're always eating, a Subway sandwich and McDonald's. And so I'm trying to answer you the very best that I can and as honestly as I can. That's been my experience. Now, you may talk to other non-Mormons or Mormons, and their experience may be very different. But I was raised in California, so I'm aware of the beaches and roller skating and surfing and the outdoor lifestyle. And I don't see much more of that in Utah than I did see in California. And I've lived in Massachusetts, and of course, there's so much snow, you can't run anywhere for many months in Massachusetts. So I hope this answers the questions that you've put to me. I hope that you find it somewhat interesting, and I hope that it's somewhat informative, and I'm willing to answer the best of my knowledge any questions that any of you come up with. So thank you for the comments. Thanks for responding, and you just have a good day. Thanks. Bye.